You finally get a quiet moment. No messages. No conversation. No urgent task. The room is still. But your mind is not. A sentence from earlier returns. Then something you forgot to finish. Then a conversation that has not happened yet. Nothing outside is demanding your attention, yet your brain feels crowded. And part of that busyness begins before any thought reaches awareness. Your brain has already started carrying something forward, quietly, automatically, because letting go too soon could mean losing something important. We often imagine mental quiet as the natural result of external silence. Remove the noise, and the mind should settle. But silence only removes incoming demands. It does not erase the activity those demands have already created. When you move from one task to another, your attention shifts quickly. The mental state built around the first task often does not. Part of it remains active. The question you were answering. The decision you had not completed. The sentence you were trying to formulate. The emotional tone of an unfinished exchange. Researchers sometimes describe this as attention residue. Even after you have physically left a task, some of your cognitive resources may remain attached to it, especially when the task was interrupted, important, or incomplete. Your brain cannot simply close one mental context as effortlessly as you close a browser tab. It has to suppress one goal, activate another, retrieve the relevant information, and adjust its expectations to a different situation. When this happens repeatedly, fragments of earlier contexts remain partially accessible. You may no longer be working on them, but some part of your mind is still prepared to return. This happens before you notice it. By the time you finally sit somewhere quiet, you are not arriving with an empty mind. You are arriving with the residue of every recent shift. Silence gives that residue somewhere to appear. There is also a deeper reason unfinished experiences return. The brain is not only trying to remember information, it is trying to preserve intentions. A task you plan to complete later is different from an ordinary memory. It must remain available at the right moment. If it disappears entirely, the future action may disappear with it. So an unresolved intention can remain in a partially active state. Send the message. Check the date. Make the decision. Return to the problem. These reminders are not necessarily intentional. They can show up as a vague tension, as repeated thoughts, or as the feeling that something's missing, when you can't quite put your finger on it right away. An unfinished task does not remain equally active forever, and not every incomplete experience becomes intrusive. But when something feels important, uncertain, or easy to forget, the brain has a reason to keep reopening it. What feels like unnecessary mental noise may sometimes be a protective system refusing to trust that the matter has been safely stored elsewhere. Your brain is not necessarily asking you to solve the problem immediately, it may simply be trying not to lose it. The brain does not need a sound to be interrupted. Silence can actually make this internal activity more noticeable. During a demanding activity, external information gives attention a relatively narrow target. A difficult puzzle, a precise physical task, or an absorbing conversation may occupy the systems that would otherwise allow unrelated thoughts to enter awareness. That leads to a counterintuitive experience. Your brain might be working harder, but your mind can feel quieter. The feeling of mental busyness isn't a direct indicator of how much neural activity is happening. It may reflect how many competing thoughts, goals, memories, and predictions are trying to gain access to awareness. One demanding task can feel clearer than 5 small unresolved ones. When the external task disappears, the competition becomes easier to hear. This is why a thought can wait until the shower, the drive home, or the moment your head reaches the pillow. The quiet did not necessarily create it. The quiet stopped covering it. But your brain is doing more than carrying the past. It is also preparing for what comes next. Perception is not a passive registration of the world. The brain is continuously using past experience to predict what might happen, to interpret incomplete information, and to prepare possible responses. This idea is often described through predictive processing. The details remain actively debated, but the central principle is well supported. What you experience is shaped not only by incoming signals but also by expectations generated from within. When the world provides clear information, those expectations are constrained. You see what is happening. You hear what was said. You know what action is required. In silence, fewer external signals are available to correct or replace the brain's internal models. Attention can turn toward remembered conversations, imagined outcomes, bodily sensations, and possible futures. What if they respond badly? What did that expression mean? What will happen tomorrow? What am I forgetting? Your brain begins filling informational gaps, not because it enjoys making you uneasy, but because uncertainty leaves multiple futures open. Prediction is useful when it prepares you for reality. But when there is no immediate reality to test against, the same capacity can become simulation. A conversation is rehearsed before it happens. A minor ambiguity produces several explanations. A future problem is mentally solved, then solved again under slightly different conditions. Each simulation feels like a thought. Underneath, it is preparation. Even at rest, the brain does not enter a neutral, inactive state. Networks involved in autobiographical memory, self-referential thought, social understanding, and imagining the future continue to exchange information. What neuroscience once treated simply as background activity turned out to be structured and meaningful. The resting brain is not waiting for life to resume. It is reorganizing what just happened and modeling what may happen next. For an overloaded mind, this process has unusually abundant material. More conversations remain unanswered. More tasks have been interrupted. More decisions stay provisional. More information has entered than could be fully integrated. External silence changes none of that immediately. It simply reveals the internal cue. And perhaps that is why the busiest thought often arrives only after everything becomes quiet. Not because your brain has failed to rest. Because somewhere beneath awareness, it is still deciding what it cannot safely let go. If you enjoy science that's fast, visual, and straight to the point, subscribe. BioSnap, science that clicks is just getting started.